Russia has said it now controls 97% of Luhansk, one of the two Ukrainian provinces that make up the Donbas. The Kremlin has made taking the eastern region its #1 objective in this phase of the war and has been bombarding the city of Sievierodonetsk and surrounding areas. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says his forces are putting up a fierce defense and inflicting a heavy toll on Russia's military.
Smoke and destruction across Sievierodonetsk. The fight for the key industrial hub has emerged as a pivotal battle in the war. Russia has claimed to have taken full control of all the residential neighborhoods there. But Ukrainian officials say its outnumbered troops are fighting on. Ukraine's President Zelenskyy says the Russian advance has come at the cost of thousands of its troops.
More than 31,000 Russian servicemen have already died in Ukraine. Since February 24th, Russia has been paying almost 300 lives a day for a completely pointless war against Ukraine. The day will come when the number of losses can no longer be tolerated, even for Russia. But what do they stand to gain from this? Most of the occupying forces have already understood that they have no prospects in Ukraine. We can see this reflected in conversations we've intercepted. This is the mood permeating the Russian army. We are free people. We're not your slaves.
About 65 kilometers west, the city of Luhansk has been hit by heavy shelling as Russian forces continue to advance further in the Donbas region. But many residents are refusing to leave.
I'm going to stay here. I will not leave without my husband. He works here, so we've decided to stay. It's tough, but it's easier when one is at home. We're going to stay now because it's too dangerous to move. They're shooting everywhere, but we hope all will be well.
These people are receiving essential aid while clinging on to hopes of survival.
Nataliya Pipa is a member of an opposition party in the Ukrainian parliament. She has just wrapped up a trip through Germany and Switzerland. A very warm welcome to DW News, Ms. Pipa. You met with policymakers, I understand, in both countries, Switzerland and Germany. Did they give you assurances that Ukraine will keep getting the support it's asking for?
Yes, on the level of cities like Freiburg, on level of a city like Bern, yes, we have to communicate, and I know that 55% in Germany are support Ukraine and speak for me a lot. Please tell to Ukrainian people that Germans support Ukraine, and we are shaming on our government, especially Scholz. And we understand this person speak that we don't can't give weapon to Ukraine because we don't know how to provide in which cans and something like this. A lot of people from Germany are really understand values of democracy, peace and humanity, and we really feel it in Freiburg especially. And when a lot speak with us, what we can help Ukraine, we like Germans give money for medicine, school books, and something like this. I have written this in my Facebook, but I can I speak too that you can write letter to Scholz, you can make petitions to Scholz, and government must hear open society. It is really helpful. We speak together about the weapon we need just for protect, and a lot of German people understand it. And we speak about Ukraine like candidate in EU, and a lot of German people said, yes, we see that
Ms.
you
Pipa?
died for... Yes?
Ms. Pipa, we have a very limited time, and I want to have a conversation with you. The Russian foreign minister, as you know, is in Turkey right now to discuss ways to get grain out of Ukrainian ports, which, according to the UN, is causing a global food crisis. Moscow says in order for that to happen, Ukraine must demine its harbors to allow ships to leave. What would your answer be to that?
We speak about it for we must to remember Russia. The blocked Ukrainian ports is this all a lot tons of food. Russia it happens for 4 months. Ukraine all time is open to speak and provide this food. And the best way is just Russia must go out to Oven port and stay there. And normally we can provide this all food. I will speak about when accident was international ship was in this area where is Russian ship and go to control this international ship, and it was take 10 or 20 hours, and every person in this ship must take off clothes all, and this rush control for all tattoos and other. It is like controlled by Russia for other international ship. It's really big problem. In the best way is Russia must go out to his own border, and Ukraine is interested to provide this food because it is like not for famine in the world, and it is about export from Ukraine too. That is very important for all Ukrainians.
Nataliya Pipa, Ukrainian Member of Parliament, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And I want to reach out now to DW correspondent Nick Connolly. He is in Odesa. Nick, things are not looking good for Sievierodonetsk.
Well, definitely that Russian offensive continues. Russia has basically step by step reduced its war aims from trying to basically take the whole country at the beginning of this war in late February, early March, to focusing on the south and the east. Then basically, seemingly, it's given up trying to go for Kharkiv, Ukraine's second big city close to the Russian border. It's also withdrawing the south near Kherson. And now it's basically thrown everything it has, a very, very, very short, compact stretch of the front lines near Sievierodonetsk, maximum firepower, maximum manpower, and still it's not really making huge leaps, but it is step by step, day for day, taking more territory and outgunning the Ukrainians, who for now are still in the city against all the expectations of observers who thought it was a matter of days. This has now been going on for weeks, a bit similar to Mariupol, but it looks like the Ukrainians, if this carries on, will at some point have to cut their losses and withdraw from the city to avoid disproportionate losses in terms of their soldiers.
Now, Nick, Russia's state-owned news agency is reporting that more than 1,000 of the Ukrainian soldiers who surrendered at those steelworks in Mariupol are being transported to Russia for, quote-unquote, investigation. What more have you been able to learn about that?
Well, this was something that was feared in Ukraine all along. Initially, when Mariupol basically was taken by the Russians, and that steelworks, after weeks of resistance, allowed the Russians in, there was hope that there would be a quick exchange of prisoners, lots of Russian prisoners of war here in Ukraine, but that hasn't happened for lots of reasons. I think it's mainly about the propagandistic battle. Russia obviously isn't doing well internationally in terms of the international perception of this. It's doing a bit better in Africa and Asia than it is in Europe and North America, certainly, but still not getting the kind of international diplomatic support that it might have hoped for. So now I'm trying to build a case to try and show these Ukrainian service people and volunteer military units as being right-wing radicals as part of that narrative that Russia advanced in the lead-up to this war of Ukraine as a hotbed of neo-Nazism. So people here in Ukraine definitely expecting show trials and a long, long wait for any of those people to get back to their families here in Ukraine.
And Nick, as we started this broadcast, we were talking about the talks that are underway in Turkey to try and get grain out of Ukrainian ports. Now, for that to happen, Ukraine would have to demine its harbors, and Russia would essentially have to commit to not attacking Ukraine. Do you see any chance of that happening?
Look, I'm not even allowed to be near the port here in Odesa to do this live from the place where we're all talking about, because the worries here about the security of that port and of Russia finding out any minimal details is so big that we're kept away from there. So the idea that Ukraine, given all the bad blood and given the total lack of trust over any kind of temporary deals with Russia, would take those mines away and open Odesa, which is a prime target for Russia's advance, open that up to attack, I think is pretty optimistic, especially given that the Turkish attempt at mediation, basically they've said that they would accompany private grain vessels along part of the route, but there's no mechanism, if Russia doesn't stick to its side of the deal, that the Turkish Navy ships, for instance, would protect Ukraine's coasts. I think right now this is about the blame game, and Russia has discovered that this is going down very badly in the Middle East and North Africa, where that Ukrainian grain normally goes, and they're trying to put the blame for those rising grain prices on the Ukrainians and not much more than that.
DW correspondent Nick Connolly reporting from Odesa, Ukraine. Thank you, Nick. Talks in Istanbul between Russia and Turkey's top diplomats on how to get grain out of Ukraine have not yielded a breakthrough. Ukraine was not represented, and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Moscow was ready to ensure safety of ships leaving Ukrainian ports. But Ukraine says it will not remove mines from waters around Odesa, citing the threat of Russian attacks. Tens of millions of tons of wheat, corn, and sunflower oil are trapped after Russia blockaded Ukraine's coastline 3 months ago. Both sides blame each other for laying sea mines off the Black Sea coast. While speaking at a press conference in Ankara, Turkey's foreign minister stressed the urgent need to resolve the stalemate. Take a listen.
I'd like to say that the global food crisis is a real crisis. We should not look at it as only exporting Ukrainian grain products. We should look at it as exporting both Ukrainian and Russian grain products and fertilizer.
Our DW correspondent Dorian Jones in Istanbul follows this meeting and had this update on possible outcomes of the talks.
Well, it does appear that there are still major issues to be resolved before any grain corridor allowing Ukrainian ships onto the world markets can succeed. The Turkish Foreign Minister, Mevlut Çavuşoğlu, did say that they were working on the technicalities of how that would proceed. Turkish vessels will be involved in checking any Ukrainian ships entering Ukrainian ports weren't carrying weapons, to an acknowledgement of Russian concerns. But the Çavuşoğlu did admit that they have still a long way to go to secure trust between the two sides to achieve this corridor of grain for the world markets.
Now, we understand, Dorian, that Turkey has offered to help facilitate getting grain out of Ukrainian ports. How are they planning on going about doing that?
Well, the whole idea is that Turkish and Russian naval ships would work on this corridor that would allow ships to enter the Black Sea ports of the Ukraine and then would depart to the world markets. Now, Turkey would also participate in what is considered the most tricky part, the demining of particularly the Ukrainian ports to allow safe access to these ships. But the problem here is that basically Ukraine wants guarantees that Russia will not take advantage of this demining to launch an amphibious attack, particularly on the critical port of Odesa. And Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, said that we would promise not to take advantage, but this offer was dismissed immediately by the Ukrainian foreign minister, calling it empty words. Now, how to resolve this current impasse, and it's all about trust, until that's bridged, then there isn't expected to be any progress on this deal.
Are there any plans to speak to Ukraine's leaders?
Well, Turkish Foreign Minister Çavuşoğlu did try to strike a bit of optimism, saying that it did appear that Ukraine was ready for talks, that they said that things had improved. Turkey's very keen to position itself as a facilitator, but Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov appeared to dismiss this, saying that any such talks would be merely symbolic. So I don't think there's any expectation of any major meeting anytime soon.
And in conclusion, Dorian, we understand that Mr. Lavrov traveled with a military delegation to Turkey.
That's right. This is all about Turkish requests from Russia to allow to launch a major operation into Syria in Russian-controlled territory against Syrian Kurdish fighters, which Ankara deem as terrorists, but Russia seems still very cool on that. Sergei Lavrov said that yes, we understand Turkish concerns, but we want to talk about this next month at a meeting in Astana, where it's a regular meeting between Iran, Turkey and Russia. So it doesn't appear that Turkey is close to any green light for any operation in any time soon.
All right, Dorian Jones reporting from Istanbul, Turkey. Thank you.